Hennie, thanks so much for your time. I'm just curious in your outlook, if I can start there, because, at the onset of the lockdown, we saw the first round of the economic fallout happening from companies that immediately went under and cut the salaries of their staff and so on. The economy is a lot more open right now, which is great, but some also fear that the second or third rounds of economic fallouts are in the offing. And for companies that are dependent on a strong consumer like yourself, this could spell trouble. The numbers that you have presented today, is this the worst that Santam is seeing in its future forecasts, or is forecasting right now a bit of a tricky situation?
Fifi, good afternoon. No, I tend to agree with you. It's a tricky environment we operate in. And you're quite right. I mean, Santam as a big business in South Africa have got significant exposure to the retail market and the small commercial and commercial markets. And I agree with you. I think we're in a difficult space in the next 6 to 12 months in South Africa, just with the very low economic growth we currently experience. It's great that things have opened up, but it's still, I think, a difficult environment to operate in. And we've seen that even in the first 6 months in the numbers, that our intermediated business in South Africa under real pressure in terms of growth. We hold on to business relatively well, but it's very, very difficult to gain new business. And I think that we've experienced in the 6 months, and we probably see that happening still in the next 6 to 12 months going forward as well. The benefit we've got as a diversified business is that we also play in the corporate market and we also play outside South Africa. And that is, I think, where we've seen good growth. We've seen some growth of 27% in premium flows outside South Africa onto our license here. And clearly that has helped us to almost offset some of the real growth pressures we experience in the South African economy. And I think looking forward to a large extent that should continue, that we're able to capitalize on the fact that we also write business from outside South Africa onto our license here.
But of course, Hennie, some of your corporates have also been hugely disrupted by this pandemic, and in fact they've knocked on your doors for some insurance claims. I know that there's a legal issue that is currently underway. You were in court, or Santam was in court on Tuesday or earlier this week. What can you tell us about those legal proceedings, and what should shareholders bear in mind about how this could potentially affect them?
Fifi, I mean, we were in court on Tuesday, as you correctly state, and it's really a matter of the interpretation around the contingent business interruption claims. We've presented our case. I mean, the applicant has also presented their case, and now it's really for the courts to determine and consider both views. We also got a number of legal cases going on worldwide. I mean, the most prominent is probably the one in the UK, where the FCA, they are also considering the wordings around contingent business interruption, and there's some similarities in the wordings they consider to what is being applied in South Africa. So I do think from a shareholder perspective, there's significant uncertainty. We've been very clear that even in terms of the provisions we've raised for CBI claims of 1.3 billion, that there's uncertainty around that. But at least I think we're making progress to get legal certainty, and that is positive. And on the other hand, what we have done, and we've in the last, since end of July, announced that we're going to make a payment of 1 billion rand, and we've paid almost all of that by the end of yesterday to customers specifically impacted by the lockdown, and that money has gone out. And I think as a business, to have been able to process almost 1 billion rands worth of claims in 4 weeks and making sure that money gets into the right bank accounts of people needing it now, right now, I think we actually think that's quite positive. And also from a shareholder perspective, that is a way of making a real difference to people out there.
No, certainly agreed. But Hennie, just for the sake of clarity, in the event that the legal proceedings that you currently have got going on don't go in your favor, that 1.3 billion that you have made as a provision, as you did say that there's uncertainty around that, is there a possibility that Santam might need more to pay off the possibility of even more business interruption claims? And if so, where's that money likely to come from?
Fifi, I mean, it would all depend on what the court rulings say and how and what we are required to then pay, how they interpret the wording, if it's different from our application. It would result, I mean, if the adverse finding, it could result in higher claims. It also needs to, it would depend also on how our reinsurance program respond to the legal clarity provided by the courts. So in that sense, it could require more funding, but we'll have to see the outcome once we've got the legal position. And then we would raise the claims as we've got as part of our normal business. I mean, we in the business of providing claims to and paying claims. So that would be coming through our normal business results.
Because the outcome of this case, I mean, it's been really closely watched because it could set a huge precedent of how business interruption claims are dealt with going forward. And I'm just wondering about the potential risk as to how far this could reach for Santam. I'm talking about the worst case scenario here. I'm sure that in the boardroom you guys are hoping for the best. But the worst case scenario, are you seeing a spillover effect into your other markets that you did highlight have performed well for the group so far?
Yeah, so what we have done is, I mean, and just to be clear, the contingent business interruption extension that is offered in our policies, it's only about a very small minority of our commercial policyholders have got that extension. So from that perspective, we talk about a relatively small part of our book. Secondly, we have looked at the scenarios, and we've looked at the worst case scenario as well, where we say, let's say the courts find against us, and for example, there's no reinsurance protection. What would be the outcome for Santam? Clearly, we've said that in our announcement, our capital levels would still be at acceptable levels, but it'll be below our target range of 150% economic capital. So that will have a negative impact, and we'll have to take actions on that. But we from an overall business perspective, this is a very small part of our business. So we're still confident that the other parts, and I think that's the benefit of being a well-diversified insurer, that there's many other parts of the business that's not impacted at all by the CBI matter, and where we carry on doing business as normal and looking for opportunities to grow our business. And as I said, there's a big focus outside South Africa. There's also a focus in South Africa, and so how do we use digital better and actually grow our business also in South Africa in difficult environment, but very much focused on that.
Hennie, before I probe you a lot further on the other aspects of the business that are a lot more material to earnings and where you are seeing opportunity, I'd just like your view and sometimes view on the lessons that this particular crisis has taught, particularly when it does come to insurance and cover and policy that is now subject to quite a number of interpretations. How would you say that this pandemic may likely shape a future policy wording going forward?
Viv, it's a good question. So we've asked ourselves the question, if we go back a year and look at our policy wordings, would we have sort of looked at this policy wording and say it could potentially not be clear in terms of what's there? I think with the benefit of hindsight, one can always do better. And we've followed a process within our business now to say, let's look at all policy wordings and really consider sort of these extreme type events. That being said, we've always had a very good process around making sure that there's clarity around what we say and how our policies are presented. In the case of specifically what we've seen now with COVID-19, I mean, it's an extreme event. I mean, I think, and to say that because of that, policy wordings are not good, I think overall our policy wordings are very clear. And on this one specific matter, there is a disagreement, and clearly it's not only a Santam-related matter, it's worldwide. There's a significant difference between how the industry sort of view the policy cover and how the market out there or the policyholders look at it. And I think that what's important is, I think that is never a good outcome for the insurance industry. I mean, the policy should be written in a way that it's very clear what's covered, and I think that would be sort of clearly our view in terms of looking at our whole book going forward. But at this stage, I'm not necessarily saying that we think there's significant changes required, but we need to consider these extreme events.
Certainly, especially as, I mean, the common saying on the street right now is the next crisis is still around the corner. I don't know why we're talking about the next crisis when we're still trying to get over this one. But Hennie, just a parting question on those opportunities that your shareholders can look forward to in the period ahead. I imagine you're not trying to, look at the glass completely half empty. What are those half full opportunities that they can look forward to by way of increasing value?
Vivian, definitely not looking at the glass half empty. I think we've looked at our strategy and said, well, with COVID happening, what do we need to change? I think we're overall still very comfortable with what we want to do, and it's really to say there's a big focus to say we've now over the last 5 years invested heavily in digital assets. We think we can start applying those assets to really be successful in an environment and in a world where people have much more accepted that one can trade and interact digitally. And I think that creates real opportunities for growth, but also for efficiencies. And there's a big focus on our side on that. In that way, we want to grow our market share in South Africa, and we want to continue to work with our Saham partners and on the African continent and really make sure that we optimize the fact that we've got this African footprint to really grow on a continent where there's not a lot of insurance penetration. So looking both in South Africa and outside South Africa for significant growth opportunities. And I mean, with all of that, managing our cost base very tightly. And I think in an environment where there's little economic growth, you need to look at your costs very, very tightly, and that we'll do, and there's a big focus on that.